We look at ourselves as a platform to foster sustainability as a way of life.
It's also about fostering social innovation, fostering social entrepreneurship. In the long run, what really matters is this informal kind of mentorship.
So the way to identify social needs is actually to spend a lot of time in the field.
One of the ways in which social innovation is driven is informally.
Every activity has to be socially relevant.
My name is Thies. I'm a member of the Technologies for Emerging Markets group at Microsoft Research in India. Before that, I grew up in the United States in the Northeast in Pennsylvania. So the way to identify social needs is actually to spend a lot of time in the field. So, we as researchers, very few of us were born in a real low-income environment. And so we can't really trust our own intuition as to what either their needs or their desires and aspirations actually are. So sometimes people in our group will go and spend months just living in a village just to understand the context and, what are their daily struggles, what are their dreams, what do they see as their needs, and things where technology might play a bigger role in their life. And I think that's the way to understand the needs, is really talking to the end user. So we work very closely with partners all around the world, because we as computer scientists and as social scientists, very rarely do we have the domain expertise to really understand healthcare or agriculture or education in low-income contexts. So we go and we seek out the experts in each of those domains, someone who really understands healthcare or really understands education. And since we don't have kind of the mandate or resources to scale up those solutions by ourselves, we partner very closely with lots of organizations, nonprofit organizations, sometimes governments, other organizations, to help scale out our solutions and have a more sustained impact. So there are kind of three ways that we can have a big impact coming from research in a corporate environment. We work very closely with organizations at the beginning to try to understand the needs and develop new technologies that might have a big impact in the field. If that technology takes off, there are some different things we can do. So one is we can actually transfer the technology to the organization. So in research, we have the luxury of releasing a lot of our solutions as open source. So sometimes that code can be reused around the world. The other thing we can do is sometimes there's an interest from product groups in Microsoft to actually make something a standard or build a broad platform that lots of organizations can use. One example of that is actually the multi-point project. This is in education in India. You often find more children in schools than you find computers in those schools. So how can children share a computer in a productive way? So our lab invented something where multiple mice, for example, can be connected to a single computer, and children can either collaborate or compete in educational software. And the research role was to show that kind of the learning gains are preserved and people stay engaged with the computer. But then Microsoft product groups were able to take those prototypes and actually scale them up into something robust and release them as a free SDK that now has lots of users around the developing world. Actually, the third way we can impact communities is if we find a technology that doesn't have immediate impact for one of our partners or immediate impact for product groups, is we can actually spin out our own organization to take that technology to scale. And an example of that before I joined Microsoft is called Digital Green. This is an NGO that works with agricultural extension in India and started as a research project in our group, but now scaled out with funding from the Gates Foundation and others to reach tens of thousands of villages all around India as an independent NGO. So I think lessons we've learned, one of the biggest lessons is articulated very well by my former manager, Kentaro Toyama. So he kind of summarized a lot of years of learning in our group by saying that when you're working in a low-income context, it's very rare that technology can be a substitute for human capacity or intents in rural environments. Really, it's an amplifier of existing humans and existing institutions. So if there's anything we've learned, I think it's that you need to partner with a very strong organization or very strong individuals who are already having very effective social change. And then you go and you see, how can I use technology to potentially make those organizations better? And so, if you start with a school that doesn't have a teacher, or you start with a health center that doesn't have nurses or health workers, that's a difficult place to work with the technology. But if you start with an organization which is already having an excellent health program, and already a school which is having great gains in education, then you can think, how can I bring technology to the equation and actually enhance their operations? I think, the biggest advice is really to fail fast. I think, again, we as researchers and as outsiders to low-income communities often don't have the right intuition for what people really want or what their priorities are in life or things that they're willing to pay for, especially. So I think as quickly as possible that you can take whatever idea you might have and actually try it on a single person, try it on a single user group, on a single community, see if you get a positive response. Ask them, when would they use it? What are they willing to pay for this potential technology? And go from there. Refine it very quickly. Within the first week of having your idea, hopefully there's validation from user number 1. In the week thereafter, hopefully you refined that idea to incorporate feedback from that first user. So I think that's the important part that often gets lost.